Chapter 56, Ventilation. So first let us talk about minute respiratory volume, or which is also known as minute ventilation. Minute respiratory volume is the total amount of new air that is moved into the respiratory passages each minute. So in minute respiratory volume, you're taking in tidal volume, and in 1 minute you have to multiply that tidal volume with the respiratory rate, okay, which is the number of breaths you take per minute. So it equals 500 ml into 12 times per minute, which is the average respiratory rate. So therefore minute ventilation is 6 liters per minute. So it should be understood that not all of this volume of gas is available for gas exchange, as the dead space volume is included in the tidal volume. Okay, so a person can live for a short period with a minute respiratory volume as low as 1/4 of this original 6 liters, that is 1.5 liters per minute, and a respiratory rate of only 2 to 4 breaths per minute. Okay, the respiratory rate occasionally rises to 40 to 50 per minute, and the tidal volume can become as great as the vital capacity, that is about 4600 ml in a young adult man. So this can give a minute respiratory volume greater than 200 liters per minute, or more than 30 times the normal. Most people cannot sustain more than 1/2 to 2/3 of these values for longer than 1 minute. And when we talk about the alveolar ventilation, we need to understand that the dead space air does not actually reach the alveoli. As we can see in this diagram, dead space air equals 150 ml in total. So in the tidal volume, you have dead space air also. So this air, it goes in, only 350 ml goes in, and again 150 ml is given out of the alveoli, okay, because it is in the dead space air. So for alveolar ventilation, we don't consider dead space air. So alveolar ventilation is equal to respiratory rate, or the frequency of breaths per minute, times the tidal volume minus the dead space volume. So it equals 12 into 500 minus 150, which is equal to 4200 ml per minute. Okay. Now coming to maximum voluntary ventilation, MVV is the largest volume of air that an individual can breathe into and out of the lungs in 1 minute with maximum voluntary effort. Okay, so it is so usually what we do is we measure it for about 10 to 15 seconds and then extrapolate it for 1 minute. So volume measured in 10 seconds into 6, which gives us for 60 seconds, that is actually MVV, which is expressed in liters per minute. Okay. And now we need to talk about breathing reserve. We actually need a reserve in the body to compensate for excessive needs during exercise, excessive requirements during exercise. So that is why breathing reserve is the difference in MVV and the maximal ventilation that is measured during exercise. Maximal voluntary ventilation and the maximal ventilation measured during exercise. Okay, so breathing reserve, BR, is equal to MVV minus the maximum ventilation by original MVV into 100. So the normal BR is between 20 and 50% of the MVV. Okay. Now coming to gas pressures, we need to talk about a property of gas which is called a partial pressure. So partial pressure, this partial pressure is the pressure that is exerted by a single gas in a mixture of gases on a particular surface. Okay, so pressure of the gas acting on the surfaces of the respiratory passages in alveoli is proportional to the summated force of impact of all the molecules of that gas striking the surface at any given instant. The pressure is directly proportional to the concentration of the gas molecules. Okay, so the rate of diffusion of each of these gases, such as in a mixture of gases we have oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, etc. The rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the pressure caused by that gas alone, which is called the partial pressure of the gas. So if you take air, the fractional composition of nitrogen in the air is 79% and 29% of air is oxygen. So the total pressure of this mixture at sea level averages 760 mm of Hg. So 79% of the 760 mm, that is 600 mm of Hg, is caused by nitrogen, and 21%, that is 160 mm of Hg, is caused by oxygen. So these are the partial pressures of these individual gases in a mixture of gases, which actually amount to the pressure of 760 mm of Hg. Okay. Now coming to pressures of gases dissolved in water and tissues. Gases dissolved in water or body tissues also exert pressure because their dissolved gas molecules are moving randomly and have kinetic energy. So when the gas dissolved in fluid encounters a surface, such as the membrane of a cell, it exerts its own partial pressure in the same way a gas in the gas phase does. Okay. So what are the factors that determine the partial pressure of a gas dissolved in fluid? So the partial pressure of a gas in a solution is determined not only by its concentration but also by its solubility coefficient. So for example, gases such as CO2 some types of molecules, especially that of carbon dioxide, they're physically or chemically attracted to water molecules. So that is why when water molecules are like this, when they are attracted, when molecules like this are attracted, far more of them can be dissolved without building up excess partial pressure within the solution. So that is why, as per Henry's law, partial pressure is equal to concentration of dissolved gas by the solubility coefficient. Okay, C is equal to Kp. You can remember it like that also. So that is why you can see that CO2, as it is 20 times 20 times more soluble than O2, partial pressure of CO2 is less than 1/20th exerted by that of O2. Now coming to relationship between ventilation and partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we need to understand these two graphs. Okay. So basically, when we talk about oxygen concentration and its partial pressure in the alveoli, we need to understand that. See, consider this as an alveolus and consider this as a blood vessel. Okay. So when you ventilate more, when the rate of alveolar ventilation is more oxygen enters your alveoli. So the partial pressure of oxygen increases, and so does its concentration in the alveolus. When the rate of absorption of oxygen is more, oxygen enters the blood vessels from the alveoli. So the concentration or the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolus decreases. Okay, so these are the two factors that influence the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, which are the rate of absorption of O2 into the blood and also rate of entry of new O2 into the lungs by the ventilatory process. So if we try to understand this graph, on the x-axis we have here one factor that influences PO2, that is alveolar ventilation. And another factor is the graph itself, that is we have we have basically the absorption of oxygen at 250 ml of O2 per minute and 4 times, that is 1000 ml of O2 per minute, as how it is absorbed during exercise when there is increased need. Okay, so at the normal oxygen absorption of 250 ml per minute and normal alveolar ventilation of 4200 ml per minute, we have point A, which corresponds to alveolar partial pressure, which is equal to 104 mm of Hg. Okay. But during exercise, when there is increased oxygen absorption, where there is about 1 liter of oxygen per minute absorbed into the blood vessels. Okay, so to correspond to 104 mm of Hg of partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolus, there should be about a fourfold increase in the alveolar ventilation. So that is what is shown in this graph. So another effect that is shown in the graph is that even an extreme increase in alveolar ventilation can never increase the alveolar PO2 above 149 mm of Hg. So that is because when a person breathes at sea level pressure, normal sea level pressure, 149 mm of Hg is the maximum PO2 in humidified air at this pressure. So if the person breathes gases that contain partial pressures of O2 higher than 149 mm of Hg, the alveolar PO2 can approach these higher pressures at high rates of ventilation. Now coming to CO2 concentration and its partial pressure in the alveoli, carbon dioxide is continually formed in the body and then carried in the blood to the alveoli, and it is continually removed from the alveoli by ventilation. Okay, so when you ventilate more, you are removing carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide partial pressure increases during excretion. That is, when carbon dioxide moves from the tissues into the blood vessels by metabolic processes and from the blood vessels into the alveolus. So that is how by excretion carbon dioxide PCO2, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide, increases, and by ventilation you are removing carbon dioxide, so PCO2 decreases. Okay, so that is what is shown in this graph. At a normal carbon dioxide excretion of 200 ml of CO2 per minute, and when there is increased excretion, as what happens during exercise when there is a fourfold increase, okay, the same thing happens. Okay, and that is what we can understand in this graph. So rate of excretion of CO2 is directly proportional to the PCO2. Rate of ventilation is inversely proportional to the PCO2. That is what we can infer from this graph. And now coming to another topic, which is that expired air is a combination of dead space air and alveolar air. Okay, so the overall composition of expired air is determined by the amount of expired air, that is dead space air, and the amount that is alveolar air. So we can see from this figure that the first portion of air, the dead space air from the respiratory passages, is typically humidified air. Okay, and then progressively more and more alveolar air becomes mixed with this dead space air until all the dead space air has finally been washed out and nothing but alveolar air remains at the end of the expiration. Therefore, the method of collecting alveolar air for study is to simply collect a sample of the last portion of the expired air after forceful expiration has removed all the dead space air. Okay, so normal expired air containing both dead space air and alveolar air has gas concentrations and partial pressures, which are shown in the table but not necessary. Okay. Now coming to causes of hypoventilation and hyperventilation. So basically the partial pressure of CO2 is dependent on the ratio of rate of carbon dioxide production to that of alveolar ventilation, and so is the case of O2. Okay. So when we talk about hypoventilation, when there is an increase in the ratio of carbon dioxide produced to that of alveolar ventilation cannot keep pace with the carbon dioxide production. So this is called alveolar hypoventilation. The normal range of arterial PCO2 is between 37 and 43 mm of Hg. So in clinical states of hypoventilation, the arterial PCO2 increases beyond 45 mm of Hg and could increase up to 50 to 70 mm of Hg. When we talk about hyperventilation, there is that is usually when there is a decrease in the ratio of carbon dioxide production to that of alveolar ventilation. Alveolar ventilation is too high for the amount of carbon dioxide production. This is referred to as alveolar hyperventilation. And the normal range again of PCO2 is between 37 and 43. In case of hyperventilation, the PCO2 decreases below the normal range. Okay. So when we talk about the common causes, see, hypoventilation, it occurs during sleep apnea syndromes, in chronic obstructive lung diseases, and also in metabolic alkalosis and prolonged hypoxia. Also when there is carotid body trauma and dysfunction, there is hypoventilation, and kyphoscoliosis. It kind of deviates from your normal body posture, so there is hypoventilation because your lungs, they can't expand optimally. Whereas when we talk about causes of hyperventilation, we have acidosis, wherein you need to expel out the excess CO2, so you ventilate more, and pulmonary disorders such as pneumonia. You also have congestive heart failure, hyperthyroidism, etc. And finally, we have one equation, that is the alveolar air equation. In order to calculate the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli, what you have to do is first find out the inspired oxygen, okay, partial pressure of oxygen in the inspired air. So what you have to do is take the total atmospheric pressure and subtract 47 from it, because when you inspire air, you humidify it with water vapor, okay, and the water vapor partial pressure at body temperature is 47 mm of Hg. So subtract water vapor pressure and then multiply that total pressure into the fractional concentration of O2, which is 21%, right? So 0.21. So this is your partial pressure of oxygen in the inspired air. So subtract the absorbed amount of oxygen from your inhaled oxygen, and then you can get alveolar oxygen partial pressure. So how do you calculate inhaled oxygen, absorbed oxygen? So take the partial pressure of CO2 in the alveoli and then divide it by the respiratory quotient. Okay, so CO2 and CO2 will cancel out, and then O2 consumed will come into the numerator, and that is how you can calculate absorbed oxygen. And when you subtract this, you can actually get the PaO2.